Hey there everybody, my name is Alex, spelt like that, and today we're going to be reviewing the Arturia Minilab Mach 2. Now, before we get started with the video, I want you to go ahead and hit that like button, make sure to smash that subscribe button, and make sure those bell notifications are active so that way you get notified every single time a new episode comes out, which is every week. Okay, now that we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and jump on into the video. Okay, so first things first, we need to discuss the hardware itself. This keyboard is very, very lightweight, very durable though. It doesn't feel cheap. It is mainly plastic, but it doesn't feel like you're gonna break it at any point, which with a lot of these much more slimmed down models is a little more common, especially if you're looking in the comments reviews and stuff like that. A lot of people complain about little teeny tiny MIDI keyboards being too light and feeling like they're going to break them at any point. There are sometimes every now and then a little spring sound whenever you're pushing down on these keys, but you really don't notice it all that much, and I'm not even hearing it now, so it seems to have gone away. Now, as far as the pads go, one of the things you need to worry about are, if the pads are going to wear down or if they're going to break easily. And, I've been using this exact keyboard for at least 3 or 4 years now, and I've beat these pads to crap, and they're still in fantastic shape. So you don't have to worry about your beat pads getting worn down. These are going to last you a very long time. Connecting it to a computer and to a power source is actually super simple. If you flip on over to the back, you'll see there's only 2 ports here. One's for a sustain pedal and the other one is for a USB. Now this plugs directly into your computer, and that is the power source. You don't have to have a separate plug or anything like that. So it plugs directly into your laptop or your PC and you're good to go. And when you plug it in, you're going to know it's working because you're going to see all of these pads light up in a rainbow type RGB type color phase. What makes this hardware so fantastic is not only is it durable, but it's super portable. Because this is so small, you can fit this easily into any backpack with your laptop, and you can take the studio on the go or on the run for all of you AL=X nerds out there. Now, if you go to Arturia's website, they have broken down the features into 3 main features, but I think really there are 4 main features. The first feature being the keyboard. The keyboard area contains 25 standard piano keys. These are not weighted keys, which is kind of a negative for me. But if you're not really used to playing on weighted keys, then that's not really going to bother you all that much. It might actually be more helpful. It's much easier to push down, is basically what not having weighted keys means. Even though you don't have those weighted keys, the dynamic control is really, really good. With these keys, you can easily swap between a very soft and gentle performance and a very hard, abrasive performance. So it's going to be great for anything that you need. Now, one issue that's kind of a blaring obvious issue with this model is the fact that there are only 25 keys. So the odds of you being able to play something with 2 hands is going to be relatively small. But if you're looking for something with more than 25 keys that's going to provide you with enough space to play with both hands, you should look at some of the Arturia KeyLab models. Like the one I have on my desk is the Arturia KeyLab 49, which has 49 keys on it, perfect for 2-hand and for different orchestrations and stuff like that. Now, category number 2 is labeled pads. These are those 8-beat pads that I was talking about before, though technically it can be programmed to be up to 16 pads, but really I only normally use them for the 8 pads. The dynamics on these pads are really, really nice. Sometimes when you're trying to really get that bass to pump through, your fingers might hurt a little bit, but that's just something you got to get used to with beat pads in general. So not really a negative there, just sort of something to think about as you're trying to make beats with this. Now, something that I struggled with the pads is the fact that they are set up in a full straight line as opposed to a typical block format. I like having a block format so that way I can have my hi-hats up high and my kick drums down low and my snares somewhere in the middle, and that way I can kind of visualize what the drum kit would actually look like. I find it easier to know which pads say what. But again, if you're just starting out with a solid line might not be as big of an issue for you. I've been kind of spoiled ever since I got the Novation Launchpad X. I really, really like that beat pad, and that is a block style format beat pad. But when I was just starting out, the Arturia worked just fine for me, so it'll work really good for you. A little trick, if you do find that the pads get confusing because they're just in a solid line, is you could always take a piece of tape, just put it underneath, and right down where you normally keep your kick, your snare, your ride, sound effects, all that kind of stuff. So that way you can just look down at that while you're performing or while you're recording. So overall, the beat pad I think is really, really solid. Again, you have that dynamic control, and the pads are nice and soft, so you're not going to hurt your fingers if you're making beats all day. Now for Arturia's third and final category, they have the expression category. And the expression area seems to be located in the top left-hand corner of the Mini Lab. So you can see you have a shift button. I really have never found a good use for that, so I think it's kind of a wasted button. Let me know in the comments below if you know what you should be using that for. I've not found anything that I really like using it for, but maybe you all know of something that I don't. You have the pad split button right next to the shift button. So this is where you can, if you have 8 pads and then you want an additional 8 pads, you can just press that button and it'll shift between 1 through 8 or 9 through 16. So if you want more options for drums or for loops or anything like that, you can use that button to kind of flip in between. Now the 2 buttons below the top 2 are the octave buttons. I love the octave buttons. Basically what they do is the octave down moves the pitch of the keys down 1 whole octave, which, to give you some perspective, if you're playing a C and the C is right here, now you're playing an octave down, the C octave down. So if you're playing middle C, now you're playing an octave less than middle C, stuff like that. And the octave plus button means the exact opposite. It means that you're going to be raising the octave up. So each time that you press that, it jumps up 1 more octave, 1 more octave. Or for the octave minus, it's down 1 octave, down 1 octave, down 1 octave, and you just keep going. Now below the 2 octave buttons are 2 touchpad style sliders. The first one on the left is called the pitch wheel, and the other one is the modulation effects. Now typically these are in actual wheel form, hence why we call it a pitch wheel. If you look at the Keylab 49s, you can see that there's an actual wheel that you just rotate up to bend the pitch up, or rotate down to bend the pitch down, and it's exactly the way it sounds. You are just bending whatever note you are playing down, or bending it up in frequency, or making it higher pitched or lower pitched. So with the Mini Lab Mach 2, the way that it works is you just put your finger down in the center, and then as you slide it up, it bends the pitch up, and as you slide it down, it bends the pitch down. Now I personally prefer the wheel because the slides really hurt my fingers after a while. I understand why they made them slides instead of wheels, but I would have preferred that they kept it as a wheel instead of moving it to a touch slider. I also find it very difficult to actually use the pitch wheel slider. I find that my fingers go farther much faster than I would like to, whereas I feel like I have more control with the actual wheel on the Keylab 49. So again, I kind of prefer that they have the wheels there, but I understand why they didn't do it. And the modulation slider is pretty much the same thing, except that it doesn't revert back to itself. So with the pitch slider, if you slide your fingers all the way up, it bends the pitch up. If you just let go, it'll automatically bend the pitch back down to its original tone. For the modulation slider, if you slide it up all the way, that's just what it's set to. You don't have to keep your finger there, you can let go. I don't really use it all that much, but if you're into that kind of thing, I think that that slider works much better, and it doesn't bother my fingers as much, simply because I just never really use it. Now, even though they didn't have it on their website, the 4th category, in my opinion, is a control category. Now, above the 8 pads, there are 16 dials. Each of these dials can control different things depending on which software you're using. So for example, if you use it with Analog Lab, you can use the dials to affect the individual modulation on each instrument. Basically, it makes it so that way you can alter the effects or the modulation on a particular sound without having to move your hands away from the actual MIDI keyboard. Now, you can also use these controls in Ableton as well. I personally haven't had a lot of success with that, but I know that it's doable if you use certain plugins. For me, when I plug it in and use it with Ableton Live, it does random things. So I'm sure you can reset that. I'm just not going to go through the trouble myself to do that. And now as a total, because it is a MIDI keyboard but also a MIDI controller, you can actually in Ableton set up where each of the pads or a specific note on the keyboard or a specific dial will basically control a different function of Ableton. So you can use a pad to record, or a pad to stop, or a pad to play certain parts of a song, or certain keys to bring in different pre-recorded audio. Same thing with the faders, you can use the faders to do that as well. So even though they didn't really put it in there on the website, I do think that you could use this as more of a controller than just using it as an instrument itself. So, software. Let's talk about software. So there are 3 softwares that come free with any brand new purchase of an Arturia Midi Lab Mach 2. And now again, I just want to really make sure I'm crystal clear on this. You are not guaranteed to get these softwares if you purchase the Arturia Midi Lab Mach 2 used. Some people may still have active software that they're using, or some buyers that you buy from may have never used the software ever, so it's up for grabs. If you want to guarantee get these software, you need to make sure that you buy it new from a dealer such as Guitar Center or Sweetwater or Musician's Friend or anywhere else like that. So the first software that you'll gain access to is called Analog Lab Intro. Analog Lab Intro is basically a VST or a virtual instrument type plugin. It also works as a standalone, but you can pull it up in your DAW as a plugin and select from the limited amount of instruments that you are provided, and you can totally change the effects, change the way that it sounds, change all sorts of different things, and basically come up with your own sounds using this. It's a really great software. I really like it. I would recommend upgrading to the Analog Lab 5. This is a very good start on that and gives you a really good intro to Analog Lab. Now, the second software that it's going to come with is Ableton Live Lite. We talked about Ableton Live Lite in my Best Cheap Recording Studio of 2023 video. If you'd like to check that out, go ahead and click this right up here in the top right hand corner. But basically, Ableton Live Lite is a DAW or a digital audio workstation. Essentially, this is a place where you would plug in any musical gear that you have or microphones, and you can record directly into it and then edit whatever audio that you record. Now, the cool thing about Ableton Live Lite, as opposed to other trial-based DAWs, is that you get Ableton Live Lite for life. You don't ever have to upgrade if you don't want to. There's no time trial or anything like that. It is a more limited version of the DAW, but when you look and see what you got, you actually have quite a bit at your disposal. You have everything that you need to make really good music. So Ableton Live Lite is a phenomenal get with this very, very cheap hardware. Now, the third and final software that the Arturia Midi Lab Mach 2 comes with is a plugin called the Grand Piano Model D by the company called UVI. So I was looking into re-downloading the UVI Grand Piano to show you what that sounds like. It appears like that is not an existing thing anymore. You click on this link and it goes, oops, the page you were looking for doesn't exist. So it looks like they've gotten rid of that. But you still end up with Ableton Live Lite and Analog Lab Intro. So that's still a pretty good takeaway. All right, so overall, my conclusion, my thoughts on the Arturia Midi Lab Mach 2 is that I think it's a really, really good MIDI controller, a really, really good MIDI keyboard, considering the price point that it's at, which its current price point is about $79 if you get it from Musician's Friend. I think the hardware is really good. I love that it's light. I like that I can throw it into a backpack and take it outdoors, because sometimes I just want to change up the vibe when I'm trying to write some songs, or if I'm trying to make a beat or something like that, make some backtracks. Sometimes I just want to be in a different space. And so being able to basically make my studio portable, even if it adds a few limitations, like not being able to use two hands or not having a pitch wheel or anything like that, it allows me to go somewhere that helps my creativity and helps me create better music for you all to listen to. I personally like how limiting it is. I like that it only has 25 keys. I like that it has 8 pads, because adding limitations to yourself forces you to be more creative. And forcing more creativity is going to force out better music. So sure, you don't have enough expression to use two hands. Oh well, you can just record on one hand, and then maybe you find that you want to do something else in your left hand that you wouldn't have normally done. Yeah, I prefer having block-based pads, but these are line-based pads, and so Maybe you come up with completely different beats because you're not playing in a normal situation that you would. These are just things that are gonna, throw you for a loop or make things a little bit difficult. But honestly, putting a little bit of pressure on yourself, I found, is really good to push your creativity and push your will to fight through it and get better at using this device. I think that this controller is super easy to get into, super easy to get used to, and super easy to make music with. If you consider the price point, if you consider the hardware, if you consider all the little buttons and knobs, and if you consider the amazing software that comes with it, I'm gonna give this product a rating of 9. I think it's amazing. I think everybody should have one, especially if they're starting out, or if you're more advanced to pro and you're looking for something to take out on the road. This is the perfect option for you. That's it for our video. Thank you so much for watching. If you got any value out of this video at all, please hit the like button, that subscribe button, and make sure your bell notifications are on so that way you get notified every single week when we come out with a new episode. Let me know in the comments below if you know of any better MIDI keyboard that's less than $100, but I don't think you're going to be able to do that. I think the Arturia is the best that it gets, but I'm also a little bit swayed towards that as well. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video all the way through. I love you guys so much, and have a great week. I will see you next week. See ya.